Okay. Anyone requires this to be in English, or all German speakers here? English speakers? Yeah, so we go English, just for you two. I'm going to speak about a topic that I find tremendously relevant for you personally, your teams, and also your organization. And the idea is that I give you a bit of a briefing of what that is and what that means for you. So we speak about agentic AI agents in the finance department. I'm going to explain what that means, but I'm also going to show you how that works, and it's going to be a little bit technical. Maybe a bit more technical than you would usually go, but I find it quite important to see what that is, because it is actually going to really reshape a lot of what you do in your organization today. So let's start with some housekeeping. We are a scale-up company, around 100 people. Headquarters is in Berlin. We are active in 14 countries. You can see those little dots. So we are a quite international technology leader in that field that can serve a lot of large enterprise clients. So that's the logo slide that you always need to show. And as you can see, clients range from H&M fashion retail to Strabag construction and everything in between. What those companies have in common is that they are big, that they are complex global supply chains, and most of them are using SAP. So let's quickly talk about what that is. So there's a vision of the future for global business services, but frankly, all type of support processes and organizations. In the very near future, AI agents, which are powered by large language models, AI technology, and that are informed by your private business data, and that are also capable of using your tools, like your ERP system, for example, they're going to take over those typical white-collar back-office processes that you do as an organization, or that every organization would be doing. And if I say they take over, is they are completely taking over from human operators. And the interesting thing about this is they can do it cheaper, they can do it much quicker, and they also often can do it much better. And I will explain why that is. So let's go a bit step by step. So if you look at how things are done in the back office today, that's the left-hand side of that slide. It's a very human-centric task, and it is for a specific reason. If you look at those typical business service processes in purchase to pay, order to cash, hire to retire, what have you, it's always about business documents. So documents is how organizations communicate. Can be an email, can be a purchase order, what have you. And those documents contain what organizations want from each other in human language, right? On an invoice, you would find what type of service is invoiced and when it needs to be paid and so on, but it's codified in language. So you need to understand what is in those documents, and then you need to apply learned knowledge. So you're an expert, you have learned how to do accounting, how to treat a PO, what have you, right? How to deal with a tax declaration, stuff like this. So, of course, today, organizations are using technology to support their process. So you would likely have an OCR to capture data from a document in place. You might have an RPA bot that does certain routines. You might have automation, business rules, rule-based automation in your workflow systems. But this is only there to help the operator, right? You still require this human reasoning. And the type of end-to-end automation that you can usually achieve is somewhere between 0 and 60. And I'm not meaning data capturing automation, coding automation. I mean the entire handling of a business event. Usually companies are closer to 0, actually. So in the future, in an agentic automation world, you would have an AI agent that can read and understand a business document, no matter what language, no matter what script, instantaneously, Those agents can act based on instructions, guidelines, right? Provided as a handbook written in a prompt. But those agents also have access to certain tools and databases. So they have access, for example, to all your historic bookkeeping. And they can inform themselves based on what you have done in the past. So they can look into what you have booked for comparable business events, and they can use this as context to decide how this should be coded now. And what they also can do, they can actually operate your ERP system and your workflows. And they can go and collaborate with your colleagues and ask for input in order to learn from what an expert is deciding and explaining why it's done like this. And this type of agentic experience is enabled by large language models. Language models, they understand language, transformer technologies, and they require a certain tooling, which is prompt management, where you would be writing prompts for the agent, and a thing called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's a database where you can put all your private data in a secure way, and then the agents can actually look into this and learn from it or know from it. Let's put it that way. So this tooling, I will explain this and show this in a little bit, is what enables a completely different type of automation experience, really a more autonomous automation experience. And yeah, you see the 80 to 95%, whatever that means, right? It really depends on the use case and actually how you want to do things, but it's a step change in what's possible with regard to work replacement in many ways. So let's talk about those agents for a little bit. So this is how you can think about it. So there's a master agent for accounts payable invoice automation, a typical use case. There's a prompt. Prompt is written by a human being, a key user, an expert, someone that actually knows how to do things. We will look at a prompt and then you will understand a bit better. There's going to be unprocessed business documents that are going to be sent to the agent. The agent is going to use little helpers, sub-agents and tools in order to perform all the different steps in the processing chain that need to be handled in order to end-to-end automate that. So, right, you can have a classification agent, you can have a GL accounting agent, you can have a tax compliance agent. And those agents, they then have also access to certain tools and databases. So a tax agent would have access to the tax law, right? Your tax handbook, if you have something like this, but also to VAT group information, to certificates, if you're a reseller of something that actually entitles you to be tax exempt. Right? All this type of context information the agents can access and then use to make their decisions. So this is how this looks like. This is how, or this is what that is, right? So this is how our agentic AI platform actually looks like. So can ingest all type of documents in all formats from all input channels. I'm probably the only one in those 2 days that is not going to talk about e-invoicing, but the agents also handle e-invoices perfectly fine, which also offers you quite a few interesting optionalities on how to deal with the upcoming e-invoicing. There's going to be a separate webinar in October. I have some information at the end. Please check it out. It is really an interesting perspective on how you can handle this additional complexity that is going to come up next year. Right? Then there is the automation flow. So the agents are going to use large language model technology. Right? You see a couple of third-party vendors that sell large language models. We also host open source models ourselves that we have fine-tuned. And this is basically the AI behind all of this. And then there's prompt management and RAG. I mentioned this already. We are going to look into it. What's important about all of this only works in the way it works if it's deeply integrated within your systems of record. So it requires information from your ERP system, but from your workflow system for that matter. But it also needs to be able to write back that information to your ERP system, trigger a posting, send something to a workflow owner, automatically. So integration of this type of technology and platform into your often on-premise systems is also a crucial part of such a solution. And what's important, a bit special to us, right? We have a highly secure, enterprise-ready, scalable platform. European clients get it in Europe, US clients in the US. We have all certificates that you can think of. C5 is coming now. So it's a very secure way of using those type of technologies in an enterprise context where your information security colleagues might have some concerns about this. So let me explain first and then show to you how an APIA, Accounts Payable Invoice Automation, AI Master Agent is going to work. So there's a couple of things to be done, right? So it starts with the input of invoices, credit notes, what have you, email scans, e-invoicing, PEPL network, what have you. Goes to the agent decides what do we have here. Document classification, right? Payment reminder, invoice. Information extraction, understanding information from the document, sort of quote-unquote OCR, works completely differently, much, much better. It can translate, for example. So if you get a Greek invoice to your Polish shared service center, you can just ask the agent to turn the Greek or Cyrillic script into English so that everyone can understand, right? This is the type of things it can do. Tax compliance, big, big topic. Formal and material tax compliant. Is this paragraph 14 conform? But also, is this actually a correctly applied VAT rate to that service that is invoiced here? Master data matching, master data quality management, big, big topic. PO matching, we look into this a bit, including handling complicated stuff, deviations and all of this, and as well coding, right? Writing general ledger accounts, cost centers, workflow approvers, what have you. So large language models make it work, tools enable, and then you have prompt management and RAG. Prompt management is the instructions to the agent how to do things. RAG is all the context information from your business data that the agent needs to do it. On the right-hand side, you see the output. Output is in your, in this case, SAP system. We have Hypertos for SAP. It's an SAP add-on that brings all that information directly into your cockpit, monitor, if you're using something like this, sending it directly to your business workflow for approvals. So it can operate the ERP system using this. And we also have Insights. Insights is an analytics platform. So it gives you transparency about automation rates, but most importantly about automation blockers. Automation blocker could be this relevant vendor is always forgetting to print the right PO numbers, stuff like this. So Insights is there to help you improve your processes and gives you all the transparency. So let me show you how that works. And as I've said, it's going to be a little bit technical, but I'll show you the actual tool. So before we start with the actual tool, here's a PO. And it's a weird one, a little bit constructed, but you will probably recognize this type of stuff. So what you have here is you have a line for a managed service, right? It's hours, it's a budget, it's a limit PO. And then you have a couple of materials that are in the same PO. And now you need to automatically get that done because we will be looking at the invoice. And the invoice looks very different to this. And I'm going to explain to you how this is now solved with an AI agent. Almost there. Can only be a couple of minutes. There we go. Okay, so Hypertos Studio. So the studio is not here for your operators to work in the studio. The studio is here for us to see what the agent does. Your colleagues would be working in their ERP system, workflow systems, as they always do. So this is just generating information for your colleagues. So output here is some header data capturing, company code assignment, also capturing the information, checking, master data assignment, master data capturing, extraction of line item information. So if you look at that business event specifically, I know it's way too small, but let me just tell you what it is. So there's a couple of different services, so technician hours that are in the first 3 lines, then there's a couple of products here, and then there's some weird extra stuff that no one expected, right? So typical invoice. The agents can easily capture all line item information. They can do this better than humans, right? Perfect quality, it's really good. But this is not what they are doing here. That's not what this is all about. What this is now all about is to actually get to the posting lines that you want to then have appear in your ERP system. So now look at this a little bit closer. I will blow it up so that you can actually see this. All right, so here's the extracted items, right? This is what's written on the document. What is to be posted is this. So it's posted against the PO. So what it does here is, it is aggregating those 3 services that you see in the line items to a line that corresponds to the overall repairs line that you have in your PO. So it's aggregating all services. And just think about what that means. So the agent knows the PO, it reads the invoice, and it understands what is service and what is the part that needs to go to the service hour budget. But it also understands then what materials need to be assigned to the material part of the PO. And as you can see, right, the PO has been stating the materials very differently from the vendor, but it still finds the right material matches using all the information it has available. It also has this manufacturing non-refundable handling fee, whatever that is. And in this case, it decides that this needs to be coded as an expense. So in this case, it decides that this is not going to be posted against the PO, but that this is going to be coded separately. And it's going to assign a GL account and also the tax code for this automatically. So the case that we see here is limit PO, material PO, and FI coding all mixed together in one PO handled by the agent in this case. It provides you the delivery node numbers, it assigns the POs, the PO lines that are corresponding, and all the information from the PO to the specific case, right? So it handles this automatically. So this is what it does, right? Everyday problem that you would have in your operations to actually do PO matching in a situation where the PO might not be perfect, and the invoice certainly also not being perfect. It's a very manual thing to actually do this. The agent does that automatically. So now let me show you how it does it. And this is actually the one big insight that I want you to take away from that session. So the master agent is written in language. So you write instructions. You write instructions in a way how you would also be instructing a colleague. You go step by step explaining what needs to be done and what resources and tools are to be used to perform this. In the end, this is almost like an accounting handbook or a training material that you would have for your operators. So it starts with extraction tasks. And right, you just tell the system to extract the required information, and then if you have special instructions, like for example, this is the ISO format of dates that I require, or I want you to remove any dots and slashes from the reference numbers, you would just write this and tell the system, this is what you need to do. There's no coding, you just tell it. And you might want to give it an example. So this is how you detail those capturing tasks. So next step, so system needs to decide whether there's a PO. If there's a PO, and it doesn't require a PO number. It knows all POs. It knows all vendor information. So it's going to also understand that this invoice belongs to a PO, but the PO is not mentioned. So it doesn't require this in order to get the matches done. So and then you tell the system how to do the matching, right? So use information in order to find the right PO. Once you have the right PO, make sure that the lines of the PO correspond to what is invoiced. And what we have just seen here It's a very complicated task, right? Aggregation of invoice items against a single line in the PO. And the only thing that you need to do is you need to tell it. If several invoice items match to one PO line, aggregate them. You tell it what it should do, and then it does it. So you don't have to code this with some complicated script, but you just tell it. So in the same way, and I think that's a quite important piece of understanding all of this, those agents use tools. You refer to a tool. The tool needs to be coded, right? The tool is access to the ECBO table in SAP. So you tell the agent that it should use a specific tool that gives it access to the open POs in your SAP system. And that's what you need to do, right? You tell it, use that tool, it gives you the PO information, and then it's able to do the matching tasks. So, yeah, this is how the outputs need to look like, yada yada, additional information that is specific to your business. So let's move on to the coding piece, because the coding piece is really interesting. So if you need to code an invoice, it's done by a different agent. It's the coding agent. And the way that the coding agent actually does this, it uses tools. It has a tool where it can have access to all the historic bookkeeping that you did in your company code. And it's going to look for similar business events. Similar business events is not same vendor, but it's the same things that have been invoiced, same services, same products. And it's going to see how this has been posted. In addition, it also gets your accounting handbook, chart of accounts with descriptions how to apply them. And it's also going to use the handbook to see if the historic coding suggestion is actually in line with what you're supposed to code. And based on those inputs, it's going to decide how to do the posting for this specific thing and assign a GL account. Text agent, yeah, same. It's going to use, it's interesting, right? Quite a few things. Tax guidelines, historical invoices, certificates for construction service, tax exemption, yada yada. The VAT group, in order to decide whether it's intercompany, right? This type of context information that it would need in order to decide what tax code to assign. We give them the tools, we tell it what to do, and then it's going to perform this in a very high quality way. So this is how this works. So you write clear business instructions to an AI agent. You give it tools to have access to all type of information, your entire history, and then it goes and does the job independently. And in many cases, much more effectively and better quality than a human operator would be able to do this. So let me quickly go back here. Yeah, I don't have too much time left, so I'm going to be a bit quicker. One important aspect, in case you have been wondering how this is going to work with your SAP system. So the way that works, you have our cloud platform, which is in our cloud, obviously, Studio Insights. You have an ingestion module that you can also use to do your e-invoicing stuff and Pepper Network access, what have you. You have Hypertos for SAP. It's an SAP add-on, runs in our namespace. You install this in your SAP system, and this is enables your SAP system, on-prem, private cloud, public cloud, what have you, BTP, to send PO data, transactional data, give access to all those databases to the agent. And it also gives the agent the opportunity to generate invoices directly in your cockpit and also send it to a workflow owner automatically or post an invoice, do the three-way matching, right? So it's really able to do then those transactions within your SAP system. So it goes together with this implementation, integration element. Can be used for a lot of business use cases, purchase to pay, order to cash, hire to retire. Not going to speak too much about it. This is the last slide that I just quickly want to show to you. So, of course, I'm selling this type of stuff and I want you to buy it, but in all honesty, this is something that you need to start to have a look at, because this is going to change the way that you do your job in the next couple of years. And you need to start looking at it now, right? So that you're prepared, that you can plan for this accordingly. This is going to happen, right? This is not a fantasy. So here's how you do this. Education discovery. So you need to learn about the technology, different solutions, different use cases, demos showing you with your data how it works. Look at use cases, prioritize use cases, do a lot of those small POCs. Try that stuff out. It's easy to try out. It's language inputs. You can do it yourself. You can write those instructions and see if it works. So try it out. Get alignment, because using that type of stuff is weird. So your information security colleagues are going to find that very weird, right? So you need to talk to them. You need to understand. IT wants to talk about it. Build a business case. So once you have that done, you start with a pilot. One company code, 1 or 2 use cases, implement it. Use it every day. And then see if the business case materializes. So see if it works. If it works, you roll out. This is how you need to think about it. And once you have such a platform in place, there's tons of use cases that you can expand into. Yeah, so that is the trajectory of looking at this. So I have a couple of more slides. You can have the slides. You can download them. I have you example ways of how you can prepare your workforce. I have example COE structures. Here's a good reference to a couple of webinars that I want to point you to. So the one, Navigating the Shift to Autonomous Finance with SSON and EY, that's a quite good one. And there is the big one where we talk about how e-invoicing now is going to come into play with an agentic flow. And this is interesting, guys, because it's going to make you think very differently about what you should be doing now to get ready for e-invoicing. It is really interesting. Yeah, so this is my time. One last thing. We have the rattle, right? We have the Gewinnspiel. Ja, wir machen das noch schnell. Gewinnspiel. So, wir haben eine Playstation, die wir verlosen. Und ich muss die schnell ziehen, weil wir haben es euch ja versprochen, deswegen müsst ihr das machen. Das ist die Glücksfee, Nicole. Ha. Christian Beutler von BLG. Herzlichen Glückwunsch! Sehr schön. Ja, klasse. Herzlichen Glückwunsch. Und da ist noch ein Star Wars-Spiel mit dabei. Wir sind alle große Star Wars-Fans bei Hypertos, deswegen. Genau, wenn ihr Fragen habt, unser Stand ist direkt da vorne. Kommt alle her, ich kann euch noch ein paar Sachen zeigen und wir können Fragen beantworten. Vielen, vielen Dank.
Wunderbar, vielen Dank nochmal.